You're now listening to the Fantasy Filler Podcast, where we put you in the driver's seat every week, all year long. In the NASCAR racing world, from top news stories, latest results, and best fantasy lineups, we'll have you up to speed and out in front before the drop of the green flag. So let's dive in with our host, Vanilla Wafers.
And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, the West Coast swing is in the books. We first started off at Auto Club Speedway, moved on to Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and we ended out at Phoenix Raceway with a race that had some highs as well as some lows. But let me tell you something, the finish was super exciting, so we will have to talk about that in today's episode. We will look at the biggest ups, the biggest downs, and everything in between. All that will be covered today here on today's episode of the Fantasy Filler Podcast. How about that? West Coast swing in the books. We're going to race number 5 at Atlanta Motor Speedway next week. But before we do that, why don't we focus here on this race, Phoenix Raceway, the first of 2 races that will be held at this track. Of course, the second one is the most important one, as it is the championship race. People argue whether or not Phoenix Raceway should have the championship race here for the NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Truck Series. All I'll say is this. I agree with that, and at the same time, I disagree. The track is so unique. So if it was held as a championship race, I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, Homestead was pretty unique in itself. Sometimes it didn't provide the best races. Neither did Homestead Miami Speedway. Sometimes it has some amazing restarts. Same thing as Homestead Miami Speedway. I just hate the fact that we come here twice a year. Now, Phoenix Raceway should be on the schedule twice a year since it's a West Coast race, but it should not hold the championship race. So you either got to do one or the other. And honestly, I would say move Phoenix to maybe the penultimate race. I still think it deserves that. But if you're going to come here in the spring, don't make it the championship race, because at that point we already have an idea on which drivers are going to do really good here in the championship finale. I mean, the people who were dominant in the spring race were also dominant in the fall race. Joey Logano was head and shoulders way better than he was in the spring, but he was still right there in the mix. So take that as you will. But here in this race, I'd say it was probably one of the more lackluster races of the season. I think both Vegas and Phoenix both struggled as far as putting on an entertaining race from beginning to end. The ending was phenomenal. I really enjoyed the ending, probably because I enjoyed the driver who won the race. But like I said, restarts were really fun here at Phoenix Raceway. So it provided us a good action-packed finish where you did not know who was going to be taking home the checkered flag. We will talk about that. We will talk about certain drivers that we need to point out here in this race, and also how well did some of our fantasy picks go, because some drivers were really, really good and provided the most points possible, while other drivers just fell off the deep end, and we have no idea why, or we kind of have an idea why, and how does that play in the future for fantasy picks. All of that will be covered here in today's episode, so without further ado, let's dive into the 4th race of the 2023 season for the NASCAR Cup Series. Here's the final results for the United Rentals Work United 500. Alright, so in this race we had a total of 36 cars. It's been the same 36 cars that we've seen throughout the entire West Coast swing, only the charter cars. There were some driver changes that we need to mention. Of course, we have Chase Elliott out for what it looks like it's going to be at least 6 weeks. Josh Berry subbed in for him here in this race. And then the 38 car, it was not Todd Gilliland this weekend, it was Zane Smith, as he will be taking over that 38 car for 6 races, I believe, throughout the 2023 season. And in 5 of those races, Todd Gilliland will be driving the number 15 car. So in this race, JJ Yeley sat out of the 15 while Todd Gilliland stepped in. So those are the biggest driver changes to talk about there. We had a total of 5 cautions for 35 laps and 10 lead changes among 6 different drivers. In the end, though, how about a back-to-back win? Yes, William Byron once again in victory lane, having himself a spectacular start to the 2023 season. Again, it was thanks to pit strategy. They go with 2 tires on the final pit stop. The first restart wasn't great, but they had another caution. And on the second restart, he had Tyler Reddick push him up to the front, and it was full sailing, a second win for the number 24 car. I'm obviously really excited about this one. I'm a huge 24 fan, but how crazy has it been? It wasn't like he was just stuck away with a victory. He was right there with Kyle Larson throughout the entire race. Maybe near the end, he was probably the third or fourth best car, but still a great run for this 24 car team. They have just been notorious for dominating the first few races of the season. Daytona, they always get caught up in an accident. However, in the last 3 years, thanks to Rudy Fogel and his strategies, they have been able to win at least one race in the first 5 races of a season. They were able to do it at Homestead back in 2021. In 2022, they were able to do it at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And then here we got Las Vegas as well as Phoenix. They go home with the checkered flag. So they have been clearly able to figure out the beginning of the season. Let's see if it carries on over to the end of the season, because right now, that's what a lot of people are seeing. Last year, he was very, very good, one of the strongest competitors, and then throughout the summer stretch was not able to keep that consistency going. So we shall see, but right now, they are on fire. Whatever Rudy Fogel and William Byron have figured out during the offseason, it is working well here in these first few races. Kyle Larson led the most laps here in this race and unfortunately finished 4th overall in a race that once again slipped through his fingers. And of course, it was the last caution for him as well. You guys remember last weekend at Las Vegas, it was Eric Almirola who spun out. Now, the caution before the last caution actually helped him out greatly because it was able for him to get right back up to Kevin Harvick, who we will talk about here in a second. But on what we thought was going to be the last restart, he's able to get the advantage. It looked like he was going to win the race. And then another caution came up, and I do believe it was with AJ Allmendinger, Noah Gragson, and Ty Gibbs with about 2 laps to go, maybe 3 laps to go. And they had to restart the race once again. Did not get the same restart, and he also had drivers with 4 tires now at his back bumper rather than having a few drivers in between with only 2 tires. They're going to get a win. It's just finishes like this are always just devastating for a team. Kyle Larson, he's been in this position before. I do remember, I think it was back in, was it 2019 or 2018? He finished like 2nd place 5 times in a row. So close to winning races, and it just wasn't working out for him. So this doesn't mean that he cannot win it. Obviously, we know that he's going to get a victory or so here in the next few races. I already see it coming, but just a bad way both times to miss out on your first win of the 2023 season. Led 201 laps and was able to score 52 points overall in the race as well as a stage win, so he gets a playoff point there. But you know he wanted those 5 additional playoff points and he wanted to be celebrating victory lane. Just wasn't it for the number 5 car, but also a heartbreaker, the number 4 of Kevin Harvick. He keeps his streak going of consecutive top 10s. He's now at 20. No one has been able to do that in the history of NASCAR. The closest ones being Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty, both tied at 18 top 10s in a row apiece. He has been able to do it 20 times at this racetrack. Just a phenomenal stretch here for the last 10 years. But unfortunately, this race where he got a good pit strategy there near the end, was able to get to the back bumper of Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson has his car run a little bit more tight in turns 1 and 2 than he would like. He's able to get around him. It's almost clear sailing, and then a flat tire on the number 21 car of Harrison Burton takes away that opportunity. He goes down pit road. He takes 4 tires while the Hendrick camp takes 2 tires and never able to bounce back. I mean, just an absolute bummer. We knew Stewart-Haas Racing was going to have some good cars here, and they did for the most part. The only one who struggled in this race was Eric Almirola, and I don't know if you can really blame him that much. We will talk about that in a second. They all ran really well, but Kevin Harvick was the class of the team, and it looked like he was finally going to get another win here at Phoenix, and it just didn't pan out. He's also going to be running for victories. I see it happening, it being his final season. He didn't show this much strength early in the last couple of seasons. He's already shown it this year, and to be that close, you know he's hungry for a victory. I don't know if it's going to come up in the next couple of races. Maybe wait for another intermediate track. Maybe even Dover could be a track that he runs really good at, but so close, and unfortunately, just a caution at the wrong time. It happened to Kyle Larson, and now it happened to Kevin Harvick. 2 drivers in between them was the number 12 of Ryan Blaney and the number 45 of Tyler Reddick. 2 drivers who needed a really good bounce back weekend, and they were able to get it here. Ryan Blaney able to finish 6th and 8th in stage 1 and 2, and able to finish 2nd overall, scoring 43 fantasy points. So really good for him. Definitely going in the right direction after having some rough finishes here at the beginning. I mean, he was able to finish 8th at Daytona. Good for him. But his car was absolutely destroyed. Does not have a good finish at Fontana. Not really a competitor at all in Las Vegas. So for him to come and finish 2nd here, that's definitely something he needed. So if you had Ryan Blaney on your fantasy roster, he did pay out here near the end. He was a very worrisome pick, but things finally worked together. Almost got the victory, just wasn't quite there. Tyler Reddick, great bounce back for him. 5th in stage 1, 5th in stage 2, top 3 finish here. Tyler Reddick and the 2311 team maybe are starting to figure things out. It wasn't a matter of if, it was when. And here early in the season, we were a little nervous about using him. Now I think he is showing, hey, we got our good equipment. We're starting to hit on all 4 cylinders, or in this case in NASCAR, all 10 cylinders. And to get a top 3 finish here, definitely a good run. And I'm telling you, if William Byron was not there in that 3-ride run and he's able to get around the outside, that 45 car is going in victory lane. Such a fast car, but unfortunately nowhere for him to go. He picked the winner. He could have picked Blaney, Larson, or Byron. I don't think he would have been able to make it 4 wide because all 4 of them would have wrecked. But he decided to go on the outside with Byron, and that's how Byron was able to get the victory. So if you're a William Byron fan, you're also a Tyler Reddick fan because he gave us the victory here in this race. But great showing by that 45 car. I'm now excited to see what he can do at the next intermediate track. Moving through the rest of the top 10, we had Christopher Bell in the number 20. Good run for him running around the top 10. Chase Briscoe able to get a top 10. He was a driver to take a gamble on, and he paid off here, able to finish 7th. Kyle Larson in the 8 car finishes 8th. It was a little worrisome for him in the middle of that race as he got 2 speeding penalties, I think, at one point, and he went down a lap, able to bounce back and finish 8th in this race. So good job for Kyle Busch. Definitely not the finish that people wanted. They expected a top 5 out of him, but it is what it is. Alex Bowman in the number 48 finishes 9th. Great save by him in the middle of the race. Just was not able to get any stage points, but hey, a top 10 is a top 10. There's a reason why he's up near the top when it comes to the point standings. I think actually after this race, he is now the new points leader. Don't quote me on that. We will look at that before we end today's episode. And then Josh Berry in the number 9, a top 10 finish. It was a good weekend for Josh Berry. Last episode for the Xfinity Series race, we talked about how he ran into a lot of bad luck, still able to finish 8th. This race, no bad luck in any shape or form, maybe just a little contact with Joey Logano. That's about it. He finishes 10th in this race. Great job by Josh Berry. They need finishes like this just to keep him in the owner point standing, because I bet you when Chase Elliott comes back, they're going to be going for victories, but they don't even got to worry about points, because if they get finishes like this with Josh Berry, they will be just fine. Before we go through the rest of the field, let's talk about some drivers who let us down here in this race. Biggest one being the number 10 of Eric Almirola. It was unfortunate. He was making his way up the field. He really was. And then with that whole tire incident, which was very, very bizarre, if you were watching the replays, it looks like the rim came off. Not even the tire itself. The rim flew off. And he hits the wall right there in the start-finish line. It looks like they're able to keep on going, but unfortunately, since it's a tire that falls off, that is a 2-lap penalty since it was on the racetrack. And pretty sure 2 crew members will get suspended for this incident. A little bit different to Martin Truex Jr.'s situation, as they just were not able to tighten the lug nut. I don't know what happened here. This was just a very bizarre situation. But Eric Almirola, once again, we expected him to run really well. It looked like he had a fast car, but unfortunately, his day was done early thanks to that incident, and he finishes 33rd overall. Just really bad luck there. Nothing else you can really do. Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain, definitely some top picks here for this weekend, and they were running really well. They get caught up with each other there on the final restart, and all you got to think about is this rivalry continues, doesn't it? I don't know if you really blame any of them. That was just hard racing, and just I think it was Denny Hamlin on the bottom end, just trying to find a line, just trying to keep up with the leaders. Doesn't work out, makes contact with Ross Chastain, and they finish 23rd and 24th. Good cars, but unfortunately, if anyone was going to make contact with each other at the end of the race, it was going to be these 2 guys. And I know we had Ross Chastain as a top pick. I know we had Denny Hamlin as a top pick. And for the most part, they were. and it just didn't work out in the end. Unfortunate there. Brad Keselowski also had himself a bad restart. A top 5 car throughout the entire race. Really, really good run for RFK as a whole because you saw Chris Buescher flirting with the top 10 throughout the entire race. Unfortunately, he also gets a bad restart and he finishes 18th. We were all paying attention to the front of the field with those 5 drivers. We didn't notice these drivers falling back, and it was people between 6th and 10th who really got the beating here. So Brad Keselowski still able to score 28 points, but he should have been right around the 40 mark because he had himself a really good car. Similar situation to Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain, just a bad restart, ended their day on a sour note. But the biggest downer here in this race, hands down, in my personal opinion, is Joey Logano in the number 22. Yes, he finishes 11th here in this race, but never a factor at all at a racetrack that we assumed that would be near the top of the charts. And what an absolute opposite performance that we got out of him. First stage, he goes a lap down. He's able to get the lucky dog, thank goodness for him. And I think even in another caution, he was about to go a lap down once again and still stays on the lead lap. So he got very lucky, but other than that, what did he do? He didn't do anything here in this race. If Denny Hamlin, Ross Chastain, and Brad Keselowski don't have those problems on the restart, he finishes 14th. No stage points scored at all. So I don't know what's going on here with Team Penske, but something about their cars is just not matching the rest of the field. We expected them to do good at Las Vegas. Nowhere to be found. Yes, Logano got the pole, but that was about it. Come here to Phoenix. We expect both of them to do great. Yeah, you had Ryan Blaney run near the front there near the end, but he was more of a top 10 car for the most part of the race, while Joey Logano was at best a top 20. Hopefully they figure things out. Maybe they're going to reset at Atlanta. They're going to go through the East Coast. We saw this happen similar with the Toyotas, where they were really behind in the West Coast swing. They figured it out at the intermediate tracks, and they were a factor there near the end. But as of right now, Team Penske is not running where we thought they were going to be. I mean, you get Joey Logano outside the top 10, and Austin Cindric finishes one lap down. He finishes 25th overall in this race. At one point, I think he was down to like 34th. So they definitely need to kick it in the right direction. Maybe Atlanta will be that opportunity for them, but as we've seen with Joey Logano in the past, when it comes to a super speedway type race, he can be able to run near the front, but he's never able to finish. So let's go through the rest of the top 20 here. We just talked about Joey Logano. He finishes 11th. Ryan Preece in the number 41 car. He was making slowly but surely steps in the right direction. I think here at this race, maybe we expected him to be more near the top 10, maybe score some stage points. But he was definitely a driver worth taking a gamble on. He was right there in the mix, able to finish 12th. Michael McDowell in the 34 car finishes 13th. That's honestly a good finish for them. They needed something like that. It was kind of been a rough start here for 2023, but for them to finish in the top 15 and as well as just being around that mix the entire time, that's a good finish for them. Bubba Wallace in the 23 car finishing 14th. Again, not one of his favorite tracks, so for him to get a top 15 here is pretty good. Chris Buescher finishing 15th. I feel like the finish doesn't justify the performance. I think he was more of a top 10 car, or at the very least an 11th place car, so not the best finish for him, but still showing good signs for RFK Racing, making steps in the right direction. Austin Dillon had a horrendous car at the beginning of the race, but luckily for him, he was able to bounce back and finish 16th. I don't know if that's really something to brag about too much, but trust me, it could have been way worse by what we saw at the beginning of the race, because my goodness, I think at one point he was 32nd and hanging around there. Just not a good run for him, but at least able to get a better finish at the end. Martin Truex Jr., not a factor at all in this race either. I think many people expected him to be in the top 10. He was another big disappointment. Some people may argue more of a disappointment than Joey Logano. Scored only 20 points. No stage points scored from that number 19 car. I don't know what's going on with Martin Truex Jr., but he is another driver that we expected to run really good at Las Vegas as well as Phoenix, and just nowhere to be seen. Just had some rough performances here. Hopefully he can bounce back, but right now Martin Truex Jr. does not look like a guy to be trusted right now when it comes to your fantasy teams. Brad Keselowski in the number 6 finishes 18th. We just talked about him. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the 47, he finishes 19th. Okay finish. Nothing to really run home about, but it is what it is. AJ Allmendinger in the number 16 wraps up the top 20. He gets caught up in a late race incident. I think for the most part he was running around the 16th or 15th place, and that's what I really expected out of him. I think some people maybe expected him to run a little bit better because of his performances at the Xfinity Series, but Kaulig Racing, I think here at these intermediate tracks, if they can get their cars in the top 15, that would be a good overall run for them. Unfortunate for them, they get caught up in this incident and they were not able to bounce back. Eric Jones in the 43 car finishes 21st. They were running on a pit strategy, so they led 14 laps in this race. And if they got the caution at the right time, it would have been great for them. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and so they had to settle here near the back. And then when the caution came out, they were nowhere to be a factor. So they just had to regroup, and 21st place finish. At least they were able to salvage for that, but it was a strategy that they took. It didn't work in their favor. Daniel Suarez in the number 99. Not at the same level as Ross Chastain. I didn't really expect him to. He was one lap down in the second to last restart, so he was definitely in a bad situation. But for him to get back on the lead lap and pass a few of these drivers, I guess is a good thing, but still they expected something way better. We just talked about Hamlin and Ross Chastain. They finished 23rd, 24th. Austin Cindric was another driver we talked about. Never really had himself a good run. He finishes 25th. Corey LaJoie with Spire Motorsports, they didn't really have that speed that we've saw in the last couple of races, so 26th place finish for them. Still doing better than the other teams that they're used to racing with compared to last year, so definitely steps in the right direction, just still not a great finish. Justin Haley in 31 was never a factor here in this race, finishes 27th. Ty Gibbs gets caught up in an incident, and what a shame for him because I think at some points he was a top 10 car. Just gets caught up in that late race incident, damages his car pretty badly, and he finishes 28th. He's another driver, just needs to execute his finishes. He has good cars, he just needs to execute, and just shows the big difference between a Cup Series race and an Xfinity Series race. Yes, it might be only 100 miles in our eyes, but that's a huge difference for these drivers. We saw it with Anthony Alfredo. We saw it with the 2020 rookie class. They struggled really bad before they started figuring things out. Todd Gilliland, he's kind of run into some problems here and there, but not really too much. But the point I'm trying to make is definitely when these rookies struggle, it tends to be there near the end of the race, hitting miles that they're not used to hitting inside a car in a race. The number 42 of Noah Gragson, just something is missing with that team. They also got caught up in the same incident, but they were never really a factor. I just don't know how the 42 car can run so far near the back while the 43 car has some better equipment. That one's questionable to me. Again, the car right behind him, Ty Dillon, the 77, is also in the same boat. These two-car teams, they have one car running really well and the other one running really bad. I don't know what's going on with Legacy Motor Club and Spire Motorsports, but they need to give some better equipment to these two drivers because right now they're not getting the greatest of finishes. Number 38 is Zane Smith. Finishes 2 laps down this race. I think many people expected more out of him. I was hoping for him to get a top 25. That was not the case. He was never really a factor, so not a good run for him. Again, compare him to his teammate finishing 13th. He finishes 31st. Well, what more do you need to say? Todd Gilliland, number 15, finishes 32nd. I actually expected him to run around this spot. It's unfortunate that he was not able to finish ahead of Zane Smith. I think that was his goal, to show him, hey, you stay with me. You stay with me in that 38 car, okay? Unfortunately, that was just not the case, but he was very close. Unfortunately, 32nd. Eric Almirola, we talked about him and his problems. He finishes 33rd. Cody Ware in 34th place, 6 laps down. I don't know what's going on with the 51 team, you guys. The West Coast swing has not been good to them at all. They've been finishing many laps down, and they have definitely been the slowest car in the field. I'm hoping that when they go to the East Coast, they can rebuild. Definitely need to keep their nose clean in the Atlanta race. Cody Ware's been notorious for doing that, where he stays out of trouble in those super speedway races and able to finish in the top 20. I hope for that 51 team, but man, just not a good showing for the West Coast swing. Then we got the number 21 of Harrison Burton finishing 35th. Yes, he got most of his laps down from the incident there near the end where his tire blew out, but he was still not running good at all. I think he was running around 27th, 28th when that happened. I'm hoping Harrison Burton and Wood Brothers Racing can kick it in the right direction because I just haven't seen a good finish by this combo in a very long time, if not at all. So they definitely need some stuff to go in the right direction. And then wrapping out the field, we had the number 78 of BJ McLeod. Similar to Dawson Cram, he had fuel pump issues, and it also looked like suspension issues. They are out by lap number 50. I was listening to their radio, and they were trying to get the car back out, But even then, BJ McLeod was like, we're 20 laps down. There's not going to be any other accidents. There's no reason for us to go back out. So my buddies at Live Fast Motorsports unfortunately had themselves a rough finish here, but they still need to keep their chins up because they had themselves still overall, in my personal opinion, a fairly decent run in the West Coast swing. It just ended poorly, so expect them to come back. Hopefully they don't have any more mechanical problems here coming up because they, at the very least, were running around ahead of the 51 car and maybe at some points ahead of the number 15. Overall, the race here was not that entertaining. I'm going to be honest with you. My Will from Opinions on NASCAR, as well as Armani from the Motorsports Ministry podcast, agreed that there was hardly any action going on up front. I mean, Henrik really figured it out. They've been figuring it out at these races. But now, once again, Phoenix has themselves another lackluster race, which kind of scares you for the championship race. And I don't know how you fix that. I really don't. You bring in a brand new package and we don't see too much of a difference. We saw a lot of passing in the middle of the field, but up front, it was the same story. You get that clean air, bye-bye. Now everyone's just trying to catch up to you unless you have yourself a big problem or you have a bad adjustment like Kyle Larson. That's the only way they're going to get past you. I don't know what NASCAR should do moving forward. I think they just look at this race and say, okay, this was not going in the right direction, but it was a hot track. It was really slick. Maybe it was just hard for people to pass. Who knows? We shall see. But if at Martinsville it's anything compared to the spring race of last year, then oh no, it's going to be another bad year for short tracks. The only thing I want comparable to last year at Martinsville is William Byron winning. That's it. Everything else, though, needs to change, and hopefully we see it here. I don't know. I'm nervous. I'm nervous, guys. There's just no other way to put it. As far as the broadcasting went, it went all right. I mean, I feel like they were more excited about the race than usual. Danica Patrick, I didn't get to hear her at Vegas, but I think she was a decent add-on here as a special guest announcer. And commercials didn't feel like they were just shoved in your face every single second they got. So, I mean, they did as much as they could with what they had out on the racetrack. At least the restarts were really, really fun. At least we get that here out of Phoenix Raceway where we'll have them going in turn 1 and 2, going 4 wide. So I give this race probably a 6 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10 thanks to the restart at the end due to watchability. I mean, it wasn't an abysmal race. There was just no action going on up front. And unfortunately, when there's no action going on up front, when you have one guy dominate, it is a great spectacle to see, but for the most part, it's not really that entertaining. So I would say look at the replays, see which drivers just all of a sudden fell apart there near the end, because you're probably going to be really shocked to see Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, and Ross Chastain finish as back as they did. But other than the restart, nothing really too exciting, mid-tier at best here at Phoenix Raceway. Conclude the final results for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Man, I'm looking at our league. You guys kicked ass this weekend. There's just no other way to put it. Just an incredible job by so many of you. You want to know how many people scored 200 plus points in our 50 plus league? 35 of you. 35 of you were able to score 200 plus points. Spectacular job. We have a 4-way tie for the lead at 263 points between Thundergun, Penske 12222, Chief Joe Coog, I hope I'm saying that last name right. I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. And then Overkiller. You 4 guys scored 263 points. I think you guys actually had yourself the perfect roster, because 260 plus I hardly ever see. More than likely, their fantasy picks were as follow. They had William Byron in the 24, then they had the number 5 of Kyle Larson, and then the number 45 of Tyler Reddick, and then they could have probably had Ryan Blaney, Kevin Harvick, or Christopher Bell, because those guys were the top performers here in fantasy this week. I'd say we did good at picking the drivers. Unfortunately, some of our top picks didn't turn out, and Tyler Reddick has proved to everyone that he is a fantasy pick to now go with here at their intermediate tracks. If you still want to join our league, you can do so at fantasygames.nascar.com. Make sure to join our league at NASCAR Fantasy Fillers League. It does give you points for the fan rewards if you're being a part of that. And also, if you finish in the top 3, or in this case, 4-way tie for first, you will get your name mentioned here on the podcast. And I'm going to try to do the same thing for YouTube and TikTok. So once again, fantasygames.nascar.com, NASCAR Fantasy Filler League. If you want to also check me out on social media, just look up Vanilla Wafers on either Twitter, TikTok, or YouTube. I will pop up. On Twitter, I usually talk to you guys during race day. Have any questions, just reach out to me there. Or if you want to share your opinions here on the podcast, now that I'm doing multiple episodes, one for each division of NASCAR. As you guys are well aware, I did an episode yesterday for the Xfinity Series and an episode today for the Cup Series. Let me know if you guys like that, please. I really want to know what your guys' thoughts and opinions are doing it this way, because I feel like I can talk about more content without spreading it out like 90 minutes. So again, Twitter at Vanilla Wafers, TikTok, I post almost daily videos, all NASCAR related on there. Most of it is pretty humorous stuff, so if you want a good laugh NASCAR related, go check that out. And YouTube, I try to post a long video once every 2 weeks, and they've been high quality. I've really enjoyed making them for you guys, getting a lot of success there. So again, Vanilla Wafers, look me up on those 3 platforms and I will pop up. But let's wrap up the show there. I have been your host, Vanilla Wafers, and I have been able to take you to the front of the field. So why don't we grab that checker flag, do some burnouts, and head on out. So you all take care. This has been the Fantasy Filler Podcast.